When it comes to asking most gamers what their favourite types of levels are, you'd expect to see a few common themes pop up. Fire levels, urban levels, desert levels, jungle levels, some even like factory levels. However, there is one type of level that no one ever really seems to talk about, and that is the destroyed level. From what I've seen, these types of levels can get really creative when it comes to potential hazards and enemy placement, and can offer a sense of unnerving atmosphere and invoke other feelings that most other levels cannot. In case you're wondering just what the hell I'm talking about, a destroyed level is basically any level taking place in some sort of abandoned area left to rot for a certain amount of time, or a structure, vehicle, or entire area that has suffered significant damage through some sort of cataclysmic event, be it a nuclear detonation, a viral plague, an alien invasion, or some other means. The main difference between a destroyed level and a ruined level, aka a level set in or around ancient ruins, is that the damage has to be fairly recent in respect to the plot of the game, or be based in the ruins of modern society, whereas ruined levels take place in ancient structures left abandoned for at least a few hundred years. Basically, think Fallout for destroyed levels and think Labyrinth Zone for ruined levels. Are we clear on that? Good. Let's get started. You know, we're off to a good start when our first entry is Victory Road from Pokemon Black and White 2. The 5th generation of Pokemon set such a high standard for the series stories that the next games down the line just couldn't live up to it. That's not saying X and Y are bad games, but after the initial excitement of holy shit, Pokemon can go Super Saiyan now, wore off, we started noticing the flaws a bit more. But anyways, back to Gen 5. Victory Road has always been there as that final obstacle, the one last challenge before you reach the Pokemon League, and it always takes place in some sort of mountain or cave area, and giving you various opportunities to go outside and see some pretty breathtaking and somewhat interesting scenery. However, in Black and White 2, like pretty much everything else in the game, there's a callback to the original Black and White released 2 years earlier. In this case, the original Victory Road was destroyed after Ends Castle rose up around the Pokemon League in the previous games, which then crumbled away after Team Plasma's defeat. This time around, the new Victory Road has you going through the ruins of Ends Castle, which offers up a unique location in the series, what with the ruins seemingly fusing with the standard rock floor of the cave, and it also happens to be one of the more challenging Victory Roads in the series, even if its sole purpose is just to toughen you up before you reach the Pokemon League. I mean, the wild Pokemon mainly consist of heavy hitters like Onix, Excadrill, Druddigon, and Golurk, and the trainers usually have Pokemon with an average level of 55, and usually have the same heavy hitters as before, but some also have the incredibly tanky Sigilyph, the no weaknesses Electros, and even the tough as nails Gigalith. Should you somehow get through all that, you still have a battle with your rival to get through. While it may not be the most challenging rival battle in the series, his team is only a Bouffalant and a Pheasant, the final form of the starter that's strong against yours, and the elemental monkey that's weak to your starter, but after going through the massive exhausting trek through the rest of the level, you're probably going to need a bit of a push to get over this final hurdle. However, the main reason why this level is here is what happens in the post-game. Should the player return here once becoming champion, they will discover a Zoroark which will then lead them further into the ruins, allowing them to explore Ends Castle more extensively, even getting the chance to go inside the ruins, showing just how badly the place has deteriorated over the past 2 years. There's even a battle with End to be found here, and he will give the player his legendary Pokemon upon beating him, then getting the option to return and battle him again with that same Pokemon, with End's team changing every season. Not bad for a level that's usually only there for a final challenge. Remember Uncharted? You know, that series that got number 1 of my top 10 franchises I played in 2014. You know, that one. As you'd expect, the Uncharted series offers up some fairly interesting destroyed levels, and while the rusted ship graveyard in Uncharted 3 and the abandoned World War II Nazi bunker in Uncharted 1 are close seconds, I have to give the number 9 entry to the level set in the war-torn city in Nepal from Uncharted 2, or more specifically, Chapter 6, Desperate Times. This level picks up immediately where the last level left off, with Nate realising that his next destination in his search for the lost city of Shambhala is slap bang in the middle of a war zone, forcing Nate to climb his way through the destroyed streets while at the same time battling the henchmen of the game's villain Lazarevich. The level offers up some fairly interesting climbing segments through all the damaged buildings, including some fairly frantic rooftop hopping towards the end. Other highlights in this level include the section where you climb and fight your way to the top of a hotel building, which includes a section where Nate needs to rescue his companion Chloe Fraser when she's trapped in a broken down elevator, complete with Nate's trademark wisecracking humour, a lengthy shootout in the middle of a square, complete with you getting to blow up a few trucks and sandbag emplacement with a rocket launcher, which is actually one of the hardest yet most enjoyable prolonged gunfights in the series, especially when you would compare it to the annoying ones that were all over the freaking place in the previous game, damn snipers, in a frantic and climactic battle with an enemy helicopter gunship, which starts with you frantically jumping between rooftops and dashing between cover, to taking cover inside a ruined building, having a gunfight in said building, and then fleeing for your life after the helicopter opens fire on the building, forcing you to escape before it collapses completely. This then culminates into a dramatic showdown on a series of smaller rooftops as you proceed to shoot down the helicopter with a grenade launcher. Don't even try to pretend that's not exceedingly awesome. After that, we get a cutscene where Nate reunites with old friend Elena Fisher and meets a cameraman known simply as Jeff, who doesn't really do much and is swiftly killed by Lazarevich in the next chapter. Bastard. I doubt you could call this one a level, seeing as it's just a portion of a wide open sandbox game, but what the heck. Floodtown from Infamous 2, everybody! Floodtown is the area of New Moray which has been decimated by a huge flood a few years prior to the events of the game. Given how New Moray is a stand-in for New Orleans in the world of Infamous 2, it's pretty obvious that this area represents the parts of the city that were ravaged by Hurricane Katrina back in 2004. The entire area is in ruins. Buildings are crumbling, the ones that are still standing are submerged in water, and there is water everywhere. In most games, or at least the ones where you can swim, this wouldn't be too big of a problem. However, in Infamous 1 and 2, Corb will take continuous heavy damage while in water, and if the water is deep enough, he will instantly die upon entering it. This is something to do with his electrical powers. Probably. Naturally, this means you have to use a bit more caution when navigating this area, seeing as one wrong step and you'll fall into the drink. However, by the time you get to this place, you'll be able to perform all kinds of new parkour moves using your awesome new navigational powers you got from the previous mission, so navigating the area shouldn't be too difficult. This also means that certain enemies can't pursue and engage Cole directly, so the only enemies you'll need to worry about are the occasional Vermax soldier and swamp monster, along with the malicious stronghold in the ruined train yard in the centre, which after a certain mission becomes a lot safer to navigate. This area also contains some of my favourite missions of the game, probably due to the fact that most of them involve taking down as many enemies as possible, which is fairly easy to do. Simply use a blast attack to knock a bunch of them into some nearby water, and fire off a bolt. Instant multi-takedown, enemies die, so satisfying. If there's one type of game that should have amazing, interesting destroyed levels, it's those that have a post-apocalyptic setting, and it just so happens that our next entry happens to be from one of the best in the genre, The Last of Us. Out of the 4 chapters in the game, the one that I enjoyed the most is the first chapter in the game, the Summer chapter. Seeing as how this chapter also covers the entire opening sequence, I'll only be covering this section after the initial escape from Boston, leading up to the end of the chapter. While there are a bunch of story elements explored in this chapter, where this chapter really shines is the showing off just how badly the world has been destroyed, and the journey to all the ruined environments you have to traverse through. While it is depressing and heart-wrenching to pass through these places, especially when you travel through the underground colony, but more on that later, what this chapter, and by extension the rest of the game does, is something that no other destroyed level and post-apocalyptic game before it has done. Make the apocalypse look beautiful. This is in part of the game's fantastic graphics engine, but each of the destroyed cities and other locations you see in this chapter look absolutely breathtaking. The lush greenery contrasts beautifully against the colours of the buildings, and the water, sweet Jesus, look at the water! All of this creates outstanding visuals, creating a sort of sense of destructive bliss. Despite this, you still have the feeling of dread due to always watching your back for either infected or bandits. There's also a constant depressing atmosphere whenever you come across a new location or artifact at what the world was like before the cordyceps fungus fucked everything up. Two of the best examples of this are when you come across the overrun school in the early half of the chapter, and when you traverse through the underground colony after jumping off a bridge into a river to escape a bunch of bandits driving an armoured vehicle. Long story. The school shows just how bad the initial infection was, as not even children were able to escape the infected, and desperately tried to escape with their lives, and you wonder just how bad and terrifying it must have been for all the people involved. The underground colony, on the other hand, gets rid of the speculation and straight up tells you what happened as soon as you arrive through a series of apocalyptic logs. Basically, a fisherman by the name of Ish, Moby Dick reference much, found a group of people after running aground and decided to hide out the infection underground. The colony had strict rules to ensure its survival, and we get the feeling that it worked until someone either left a door open or got infected and turned inside while the doors were sealed, leading to the entire colony, including children, being wiped out. I could seriously spend a lot longer talking about this chapter, but I'd be here for a whole month, so let's move on. From one post-apocalyptic game to another, except this time it's from a series that I've never talked about before. Resistance. I only got into the series fairly recently, but after playing all 3 main games, I honestly can't believe that I let this series slip under my radar for so long. The story is that in 1905, a huge explosion happened in the sky above northern Russia, known in history as the Tunguska event. This actually happened, and while nothing much has really come of it aside from a fairly large crater, in Resistance this released the Chimera virus, which turns humans into these ugly buggers. After breaking out of Russia, the Chimera swarmed across Europe, later spreading to the rest of the world and proceeding to curb stomp humanity in the process. And by the time of Resistance 3, humanity was reduced to living in holes in underground settlements in the ruins of destroyed cities. To make matters worse, certain strains of Chimera have gone feral. Why the talk about Resistance 3? Because our next entry comes from there, of course. The basic plot of the game involves our protagonist Joseph Capelli being tasked with destroying a Chimera base in New York City, and so he begins the long journey across the United States. One of these levels takes place on the Mississippi River, which appears to have burst its banks sometime after the Chimera invasion. You're basically sailing through a flooded city on a boat that looks like it could fall apart at any moment, while being attacked from all sides by a huge amount of Chimera of both military and feral strains. While all you have to protect yourself is the assortment of weapons you've collected up until this point. So, naturally, it's freaking awesome as hell. This level is also blanketed in fog, which not only limits your visibility and helps to obscure approaching threats, but also adds a sense of foreboding and dread as you can never tell just what you'll come across next. This also works to create suspense as you come across a colossal war machine known as a Goliath at various points, which you know is practically invulnerable to everything you have, forcing you to hide in the fog bank and pray that it won't spot you, and at the end of the level it's basically a mad dash to get away from it before it sinks your boat. Normally, these types of levels would be hell due to the lack of ammo and health pickups, but Resistance fixes this problem with an infinite health and ammo dispenser, and gives you access to a shotgun that fires explosive projectiles at secondary fire, and the Magnum revolver, whose shots embed themselves in whoever you shoot, and you can then detonate the rounds once they're inside a target. This means that you can kill large groups of Chimera fairly easily. This level is capped off with the background music appropriately named Into the Fog. This is a foreboding sounding theme which consists mainly of prominent marching drums, along with a few string instruments to add a sense of atmosphere to the level.